welcome to Depth of Field. We're here at the TWA Hotel at JFK Airport. We have a very special guest for you that has arrived yesterday, Mike Colón, who is a Sony artisan. He's also a celebrity wedding photographer and fashion photographer. He has an amazing career, some really great tips, and he flew in here for a photo shoot. So we're gonna go introduce you to Mike, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about Mike, his history, and share some tips for you guys, and then we're gonna take you behind the scenes to the photo shoot. So let's go find Mike. This is gonna be really cool because Mike is known as a wedding photographer, and he also does fashion. So he kind of lets fashion inform his wedding photography, and also the other way around. Some would say, like, what's wedding fashion? But he works for bridal magazines, he works for designers, and of course he works for the brides on their big day. So it's really a great 360-degree view that he has on the industry. This is like a regular day for Mike, flying into a location, doing the photo shoot, working with the stylist. Okay, hi everyone. We found Mike Colón's room in the TWA Hotel, and now we're sitting with Mike Colón. Welcome to Depth of Field.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, dude.
It was a pleasure. Your flight was good. The room is nice.
Yeah, can't complain at
Got
all.
a big photo shoot planned.
Yes, I'm excited about it.
I can't wait to see the work.
Rooftop, pool,
In February,
tarmac.
in New York City.
Yeah,
It's gonna be great.
yeah. I'm gonna bring my beanie out there for sure.
Okay. Right on. Okay, so Depth of Field is all about empowering photographers, and you have had an amazing career. You're still in the middle of your career. You're a young guy. Tell us how you started in photography.
Okay. Yeah, I started working for. Well, I bought a camera. Kind of impulse bought a camera. Put it on my credit card. I was in the mall and just was kind of digging the gear. I'm kind of a gear junkie. So I bought a camera, and then I was like, man, I better learn how to use this. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I started taking classes in school. And that kind of one thing led to another. I started getting random photography jobs. I actually started working for a company called Yeri Photography. We shot school, like team sports. This big like senior class photos and football teams and things like that. I got a job with classic photography, which was like a senior portraits, like for sorority fraternity formals and senior class or what's it called, like senior portraits. You know, you pose.
You did the poses.
Yeah, I
did you do proms?
No, but I mean, kind of similar. You know, a backdrop and a line of people out, but they're less like prom, more like drunk college students, trying to keep them in front of the backdrop.
Herding cats?
Yes, herding kids, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, and then wedding photography, when did that come around?
So a friend of mine introduced me to this wedding photographer in Orange County. His name was Jim Sisko. He was looking for kind of an associate photographer. And so I went and met with him. We kind of hit it off, and he was looking for someone that he could train and start referring overflow work to. Like if he was already booked for the date, he wanted to expand his team a bit. So I would pay him a commission, he would send me work. So yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it. Like one summer, he just took me on a bunch of jobs with him, like 10 or 15 weddings. Opened my eyes and my mind to the world of weddings, showed me the ropes, like how how a photographer needs to work and the flow and everything, and what different events happen at a wedding. Honestly, before this summer, I think the only wedding I had seen was like a cake reception at my church. Like I had not seen like these extravagant events, so my mind was blown. You know, seeing like a bride spend $1,000 on a bouquet was just mind blowing to me.
Now you're in Southern California, in Orange County. It's affluent. So
Yeah.
these weddings are pretty high powered.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Anaheim and kind of the west side, so my circle of friends, I never saw this stuff, but like, yeah, Orange County definitely has some money. That's why I ended up moving my business to Newport Beach and kind of going after more like high end jobs eventually. But yeah, weddings are crazy.
It reminds me, at a Depth of Field years ago, Andy Marcus came out and said that his father taught him to shoot. He would rather shoot one wedding for $100,000 than 10 weddings for $10,000.
Yeah,
I was always happy if I could get $1,000 for a wedding, but
exactly. Well, Andy said he hit me up at WPPI like back when I first raised my prices. I jumped up really high in price, and he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, Mike, be careful what you're doing because some of my best clients came in at a lower price, and then we got they could be $100,000 a year client, and they came in at like $5,000 wedding. And so he knows, like, not to limit yourself. But I was kind of doing the opposite. I was like going straight to the top to create a splash, And,
well, it worked.
It caught his attention. I was like, I'm just impressed that Andy knew my name, and he walked up to me and was talking to me. I was like, that's all that I cared about, Like something's working.
A 3-generation New York City wedding photographer. But
yeah.
Your career really supercharged when you started working for the magazine, Wedding Style?
Yeah, I mean, I did the whole grind thing. I worked a lot of weddings. I kind of worked my way up. I was on kind of like, I kept increasing my prices. Wedding Style magazine was huge for me, though. I think one of the best choices I ever made, and it was a little bit lucky. But I started advertising in different magazines in Orange County, and I always wanted to advertise in Grace Ramon Wedding Style. That was my favorite magazine. I looked at it, I admired it. It had the vibe that I liked. Big format, high quality paper, black and white photos, very like real weddings, a lot of real weddings, and very high end stuff. And so I was like, someday I want to put an ad in that magazine. Someday I hope I can afford to put an ad in that magazine. But of course, it was like, I don't know, $15,000 for a page, and I was, paying $3,200 at Modern Bride or whatever. So I was thinking I better maybe submit work. So that's kind of how I got in. I started submitting my work, submitting real weddings. And one day Grace called me up after I submitted this one wedding, and she was like, Mike, I never heard of you. I don't know why, because I like this wedding, I like this work, but I want to see more of your work. And that was kind of the beginning of it. And then she featured one of my weddings. I ended up like advertising on the next issue, and credit card. Put it on my credit card. I'm like, this will eventually pay for itself. But that was my kickoff relationship with her. And then I ended up hiring a publicist who was actually her West Coast editor. So that was like kind of lucky. The publicist actually hit me up, Rita Hermes. She hit me up and was like, hey, Mike, I would love to have you as one of my clients. And I saw her credit in the magazine as West Coast editor. And this is like the magazine that I wanted to kind of put all my eggs into that basket. It was the one wedding magazine that I thought was exactly my target market.
It was very bold, hiring a publicist.
Yeah, and she wasn't cheap, and it was kind of like, it's like hiring someone to get you to submit more, and to also someone with connections, someone that what really, like, the connection I wanted was Grace Ramon, but she also connected me with like some of the top wedding planners, like Ava Carol Brown. I did a bunch of celebrity weddings with her. So like Rita just like had connections. She'd been around longer than me, and she knew the right people, and she liked my work, and it was like a good fit for me, and I was very fortunate.
You invested in getting your name out there and getting your work out there to attract clients.
Yeah.
And you did spend quite a bit of money on that.
Yeah, I did.
Is there a ratio that you would recommend a new photographer who's just starting?
That's a tough one. I think that I've always thought you have to spend money to make money, and like, or at least if you can justify, if you spend some money, like on an ad or something, if you can make back at least that. Some people say you have to make back 10 times your money or it's not worth. And I'm thinking, like, if I can make back 1 times my money, if I can just get my money back from that ad, then my name got out there. Whatever people saw, whoever saw my name in that ad, that's a win. So I always thought, like, if I book 1 wedding or 2 weddings, that'll pay for that. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of gauged everything on that. Like, I really thought that this was going to do well for me. I would say, like, well, all I need to do is book 2 weddings I wouldn't have normally booked. It'll pay for it, and then
it's a good way to justify.
But you can keep doing. You can keep doing that, getting into trouble too. So, yeah, I don't know. I used to tell people, like, put it on your credit card. Do, like, just like, get in over your head and swim to the top. That was my philosophy. But that was kind of what I had to do. I had no money, so I would just use credit to do these things. But it ended up, working. I was making wise choices. Maybe not the wisest financial choice, but that was my only option.
You were
high interest rate credit cards.
You were building a foundation.
Yeah.
It was an investment.
It was.
I mean, the way people pay for a college investment.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Right?
Honestly, if I was to go back and do it over again, I think that the most valuable and actually the cheapest way was the network that I developed, and that was more like meeting the right photographers that I admired, people that I liked their work and they were successful, and investing in time with them, investing in buying them lunch, picking their brain, befriending them, like offering to help them out on a shoot or whatever, but I mean, a lot of photographers.
So they weren't your competition; they were your network.
I mean, those guys, when I was hitting them up, they didn't consider me competition because I was lower price point. I was just starting out. I was just like hungry for information. So I would, like, Becker was one of the guys, and I took him to PF Chang's. Like, I heard it was his favorite place to eat. He just wanted some lettuce wraps and some crab wontons, you know. And so I took him to PF Chang's, and the guy, like, was so generous with information, just taught me so much, inspired me. He was the guy who actually inspired me to pursue my style of photography versus I was shooting medium format, and he was like, you could shoot all 35. And I was like, what? I could shoot 35, you know? So, but then he would, like, refer me work, you know, like eventually through building that relationship, he trusted me enough where he can refer me work. Like, he would refer me his overflow work. And then if I had a double book, you know, I would refer it back to him. So that's, I think, the best investment. Advertising is awesome. Nowadays, it's kind of different. Like, I was doing magazines and stuff back then.
So I know we have our models in the wedding dresses showing up very soon. Just want to ask you, talking about equipment, you've been doing this for a while. So you've had medium format film cameras, 35 millimeter film cameras, digital cameras, and now you're a Sony artisan, and you're using very good equipment with very good lenses.
The best, yeah.
Tell me how this has changed you and how you nail your shots with this high-end equipment from Sony.
I think Sony was a huge game changer for me. I think that mirrorless, Sony was kind of the one to pioneer mirrorless in our industry, and I think mirrorless was the next best thing since film went digital. It was the next, like, crazy thing in photography. Like, nothing really was exciting or different until Sony came along again with the mirrorless stuff. And the mirrorless stuff, just, like, I think the reason it's such a game changer for me was just the confidence it brings me, like, when I can see what I'm going to get before I shoot.
It's kind of nice.
You know? Yeah.
Exposure compensation in real-time mirrorless is like a godsend.
Exactly. Like, if it looks right in your viewfinder, you know the photo's going to look exactly like that. So it's just confidence builder, time saver, not to mention, obviously, like, I think probably my favorite feature that the Sony offers is the incredible autofocus system, which like the eye autofocus, how it'll lock onto the closest eye. It'll pick the closest eye, lock onto it, and track it. So, you know, I no longer have to manhandle my focus selector, moving that thing all around the frame, missing shots, having my focus jump to the background. It just locks onto my subject's eye. Could be a runway model from the back of the runway all the way to the front. I can get creative with my composition, whatever I want, and I know every shot's gonna be sharp. And that was the game changer for me, honestly. Like, when Sony just nailed the autofocus system, like that, it almost makes it too easy.
What's your favorite Sony lens? What's your go-to lens?
I'm in love with the 50-1.2. I also love the 85-1.4. Like, those two lenses, those two primes are my favorite. I have so many favorites, but
you shoot wide open a lot.
I shoot, yeah. I love that, you know, just really buttery backgrounds, like shallow depth of field. I love pulling my subject off the background with depth of field. The name of the event.
There you go.
Yeah.
There was a reason for that.
Yeah, okay.
We thought about that. Okay, so my last question for you is going to be, you're a wedding photographer, and you also throw fashion in, and then wedding fashion. Just talk about what are the opportunities that these different types of permutations of wedding photography, because I'm used to just dealing with the family, the bride, and that's it. But now you're wedding fashion.
Yeah, I mean, wedding fashion is kind of like it's a fun place to be because you're kind of set up for success and set up for great portfolio. You have, you know, like, stylist, model, hair, makeup, everything's right, everything works. Sometimes you get to really choose your location, time of day. Weddings are completely different. You're just kind of, whatever's thrown at you, you have to nail.
Sure.
You know, so yeah.
Who are you working for when it's fashion? The designer or a catalog, or are you shooting?
So
it
started out with Wedding Style magazine. It started out shooting runway, and I was working for the magazine, and basically it is editorial work. And then through working every single high-end fashion gown designers shows, I obviously made connections, and I started shooting in BTS. Like, I'd be backstage while everyone's getting ready and just, like, shooting a bunch of cool black and whites. That was one thing that was awesome with Wedding Style magazine. I was shooting runway from the pit like everybody else, and we were just getting bored. Like, I was getting bored, Wedding Style was getting bored, kind of. It was all the same stuff, and every photographer had it. So we stepped outside of that and started shooting more like off angle, black and white, low, high. I wouldn't sit in the pit. I could have front and center in the pit almost every show because of the connections the magazine had, but I chose to be off center like getting the crowd in the background, like from a different angle. I chose to be backstage, even shooting towards the pit sometimes. And I would come up with these black and white images that were more interesting to me because I was so bored. I just didn't want to have the same shot as everyone else. And that led to a lot of these designers noticing me and hiring me to do their BTS stuff, which led to, you know, me getting campaign work, social media campaigns, magazine campaigns, working with the designers themselves, you know, working with these gown designers.
Good thinking. Thinking on your feet fast, doing something the other photographers aren't doing, getting a different angle.
Yeah, just trying to do something
Black
that you
and
haven't
white.
seen before, yeah, for sure.
All right, right on. Okay, so we got our model coming up, and I know that you're going to talk to us a little bit about being behind the lens.
For sure, yeah. So
So-
I can get right into that.
I did that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mike Colón, Sony artisan, and a professional wedding photographer and wedding fashion photographer. Thanks.
Thanks, David.
See you later in the show.
I like how you say my name too.
I like that.
Colón.
Colón.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I have an Italian wife. She told me how to speak,
Nice.
speak smoothly. Okay, thanks so much.
All right. We were out there all day on this awesome photo shoot with our model Mimi. We got like all through the hotel. We were on the tarmac with a cool TWA like retro airplane. We did some shots inside. I got to shoot in the cockpit, which I wasn't supposed to, but I took down the little rope and signed. Got to shoot in there. We even got the help of a couple of the bellboys to like be in the shots and model for us. I had them like checking out the model and helping her off the airplane. It was a lot of fun. Those guys were super cool. We got to shoot like in the lobby. I was just really looking for good light, and when I didn't have good light, I was looking for, or I was creating light with a reflector or with a fill video light. But yeah, it was a good time, and I have a little presentation for you. I'm going to talk about my shooting philosophy and just go into a lot of details about how I shoot, what I'm thinking, and what it's like to be behind the lens for me. All right, so let's get right into it. My shooting philosophy is 3 things. Real is better than perfect, raw is better than polished, and unique is better than repeatable. So let me explain what I'm talking about. So real is better than perfect, that's the first one. I'm a big fan of reality. I just think that it's more interesting. I'm not a super big fan of fantasy, of creating, posing, all those things. For example, like I like reality TV over like a fiction show. I like documentaries usually, or movies that are more realistic as opposed to like fantasy or science fiction. That's just kind of who I am. I like real. I think that there's enough interesting things in the real world to focus on. So in my work, this is just my opinion, my taste, I personally like my work to have this kind of real feel. And you can get into perfectionism. I'm also kind of a perfectionist, and so I find myself a lot of times struggling. It's kind of like this inner struggle, this battle between perfectionism and like letting it be real, letting it be what it is. And this comes down to like all kinds of stuff. It comes down to what lens I'm using. It comes down to my camera settings. It comes down to like directing and maybe coaching the model. It comes down to how I'm posing them. But I'm leaning towards, in most of the situations, I'm leaning towards real over perfect. One of the things that kind of backs up my theory on why that I actually believe that real is better than perfect. When I first started wedding photography, I was shooting film, and I was shooting medium format, and I was shooting 35 millimeter. The medium format stuff was more posed. It was like the camera was slow, it was manual focus, so I had to slow down and stop the action and set it up. Sometimes I'd have a backdrop, sometimes I'd have lighting, and I'd do these portraits of the bride and groom. And then the 35 millimeter stuff was all candid. It was just like a lot of black and white, a lot of dance floor stuff, a lot of just candid. Even during the ceremony, I'd grab it with a long lens and get more like paparazzi looking, photojournalistic type images. And when I'd get the film back from the lab, the medium format stuff I would set aside. It was almost like I didn't care about it. Like I already knew what I was going to get. I wasn't super excited to open up the package and see what shots I got. I already knew. I posed it. I knew it. I've manually focused and shot the image. So that stuff wasn't as exciting to me. what I was excited for was the 35 millimeter. It was like Christmas. I couldn't wait to see those. I couldn't wait to see the real moments that I captured, to see the magic that just kind of, maybe I got lucky, maybe I got this amazing image, or that image that I was going for that I thought I captured, I wanted to see if I actually captured it. And so I just leaned towards that. And then eventually I went all 35 millimeter because I liked shooting more real moments, more photojournalistic. I wasn't into like all the crazy poses, all the fancy poses. I was just into kind of capturing reality and letting the story unfold and just documenting. So that's just my taste. That's what I love. And so that's kind of part of my shooting philosophy. Real is better than perfect. So like today when I was shooting, you would see me, coaching her on some of the poses and having her do retake after retake. And you could do that in a fashion shoot. You could even do that with your model, with your bride, at a wedding. Obviously at a wedding, you got to move quick, right? So you don't have as much time. But with Mimi, I just noticed like sometimes I would direct her, or sometimes I would pose her and it would just look or feel kind of posed or directed. And so I would do a retake and I might tell her something different. I might, instead of telling her, move your leg this way, I would say, hey, this is what I'm going for. I'm looking for shape in your body. I'm looking for an S curve in the dress. I want to break up these straight lines of this doorway that's framing you, like the elevator, for example. The doorway that's very straight. I wanted to get the gold doors closing and the straight door frame framing her, but I wanted her body to break up those lines and to create an S curve through the lines. So I would give her that idea. Give her, like, kind of tip her off on what I'm going for. Instead of telling her how to move her body, I would just say, this is what I'm going for. I want a S curve with your body. So let the gown flow this way. And then what I noticed was like it kind of fell together naturally. She would do that. But the other thing is when it comes to like getting something more authentic and real, it's better, I found it's better to, instead of micromanaging their pose, it's so much better to give them an idea, to put something in their head, make them an actor, and let them let their body do what it will with the idea in their head. Let their face say what it will with the idea they have in their head. You can't really like pose a face, right? You can pose a body, but sometimes it looks rigid in pose. You can't even pose a face. So it's better to, in my mind, give them an idea, a thought, a scenario, something to think about that directs them towards what you're going for visually. So the next one is raw is better than polished. And this is kind of along the same lines. When I think of raw, I think about like my editing, my post-processing. So when I'm editing a photo, I try not to do too much to it. I try not to put too strong of a filter on it. I try not to make it look too stylized or artsy, like too far from reality. I try to keep the skin tones pretty natural. Sometimes I'll add grain because I feel like grain gives it a little bit of that gritty kind of film look, which takes it out of a time zone because film is used today and it was used a long time ago. So raw, and when I think of a raw image, I think it could have some film grain to it. I try to really just keep it true to what it was and eliminate any distractions. But I'm not trying to add in, like if I'm gonna Photoshop, I might take out something, like take out an exit sign that's glowing red in the background. Or take out something on the floor, an outlet or something that's in the shot. But I'm not going to like over stylize the image, like add too much contrast or smooth out things where it looks photoshopped. I want to keep it authentic and raw. I would rather there be flaws in the image, almost like I would rather there be a flaw in the image just to prove that the image is real. Just like let there be a flaw, let there be a scar. Like why would you remove something that is already there and it's permanent? Like maybe I would take off a blemish, but I would leave a freckle, right? A freckle is like part of the raw image. A blemish is temporary, I could take that off. So I'm thinking keeping it more raw. And almost, it's the idea of embracing what is, not trying to create something that's different, just like allowing it to be beautiful as it is. That's when I think about raw. Raw is better than polished. So the next one is unique is better than repeatable. When I say unique, it is what it sounds like. It's just trying to create an image that I haven't seen before, something that is unique, that is hard to repeat, that is, hasn't been done before. I think about like when I direct a subject or try to pose them too much, my work starts looking like repetitious. Like it starts looking like the same photographer shot these images with different people. And I really don't like that. I don't want to look through all of my shoots from the past year and all of them to look the same. And that's really easy to fall into. We get comfortable, we start doing the same things, and it's really hard to be so creative that we are like, every different shoot coming up with all these new poses and all these new things to do. It's really hard, especially when you're shooting a lot. So what I found is by stepping back and letting, like not posing, like not directing, not interjecting too much, being a little bit more hands off. Of course, getting in there when I need to set myself up, but just the more hands off I am, the better I find the results. Unique is better than repeatable. So I think of a repeatable image as something that I've contrived or I've posed or I've directed. I think of like a unique image as something that just happened and I was there to capture it. And I think that's what I fell in love with when I first started photography was the idea of capturing a moment in time. Now, if I was to create that moment in time and then take a picture of it, then that's repeatable. I can create that again and again and again and again. But if I was just there, something was happening and I captured it, to me, that's like a moment in time that's unique, that no one else can have. And I think that's the special thing about being a photographer. It's like you get to preserve a moment in time that nobody else can. You were the only one there, You were the one that was lucky enough to be there, and you capture that moment, and it's yours forever. It's kind of cool. It's one of the coolest things about photography. So unique is what I'm going for. Another way to make sure your work is unique is just to simply find more of an exclusive location. Like we're at the TWA hotel, and you would think that like a hotel like this wouldn't just give you access to everything, but they did. They just let us shoot. I mean, we have B&H involved and Sony involved and things like that, but you would just be shocked at what people will say. They'll say yes sometimes when you may not have asked because you're afraid they'd say no. Like we asked the bellboys if they would want to be in the shots and if they would even sign model releases, and they were down. They just wanted to do it. They were so into it. So like you never know until you ask, and to be able to like find a location like, for example, the cockpit of the airplane, that probably most photographers wouldn't shoot in or wouldn't think it was allowed. We were able to get in there and take some really cool shots that were very unique. She was in this like retro airplane cockpit, and those I'm really excited to see those. One of the things that I like, these are tips on how to kind of keep your stuff believable and authentic. One of them is shooting reactive versus proactive. So when I say that, I got that from Dennis Reggie. He's one of the guys that I studied, an awesome photographer. He's a photographer for like the Kennedy's weddings and just done so many high-end weddings with people with like a lot of taste, sophistication. So I learned this from him, and I actually kind of adopted it as into my language and into my ideas when I'm shooting. But reactive versus proactive is like you're reacting to what's happening in the shot versus making things happen in the shot. Some people say like you don't take a photo, you make a photo. But I'm kind of the other camp. I'm like Dennis Reggie. I like to just react. I like to sit back and find things. And that even translates into like what we did today, like fashion photography, or like a model bride where I have the opportunity and the time to direct, but I'm still trying to react to what I see and lining things up and letting her move and just trying to kind of react to my environment and finding new little locations. Like we found like a luggage train car thing, and we put her over there, and then she jumped on the front of it and was like driving it, and then we like, I saw some lights as we were passing by, and I was like, oh, those look kind of cool flaring behind her dress, and so we photographed her in front of the lights, and so I'm trying to react to my environment, to things that I think are cool and look good. Sometimes I'm recreating, like I see her walk by something, and I'm like, that was cool. So can you walk by that again? So in a way I'm proactive there, but it's still reactive. I'm reacting to something I saw that I liked. I'm getting ideas that way. The main thing that I try to go with is stand back and react and just absorb and let the finger go when you see something you like versus stepping in and posing and contriving. I feel like that just ends up looking a little stale. So the other thing, another tip is subtle and effortless. So when I'm in there and I have to kind of pose or direct, I try to keep the poses very subtle. I don't want them looking too contorted or or posy. You know, I don't want them to look like a model. I prefer them to look like just a regular person that happens to be pretty, you know. I think that subtle is kind of like confident, and subtle is just like, I am what I am, and I'm beautiful on my own. I don't have to make myself beautiful, and I think that's attractive. I think that that's, you know, something I try to work into my shoots. Just be subtle and let the poses be like effortless. Confident and comfortable. I think the model should be confident, or your bride should be confident. Whoever you're photographing in front of your lens, it's your job to make them feel comfortable, which also makes them feel confident, to build them up. Like with Mimi today, I remember specifically saying, Mimi, you look gorgeous, or you look beautiful today. I say that because it's true, but I also say it because she needs to hear it. That builds her confidence, that makes her feel better about herself. I mean, she doesn't have a mirror in front of her. She can't see herself all day long. I'm her mirror. So it's my job to build her confidence. I think the best photographers make people feel comfortable in front of the lens. Like as a photographer, have you ever had someone taking your picture and they're just like, smile, you know? And you're just like, make me smile. I don't want a fake smile. Make me smile. It's like your job, I think, to make people feel confident and comfortable. One of the ways I do that is to show images on the back of the camera. So if I nail a shot, I really like it, I think she looks amazing in it, or I think it's really cool, to build her confidence in what she's doing as my partner in the shoot, I'll show the back of the camera. And of course, I'll try to pick a shot that I think she would like, you know, but I'll show it to her, and hopefully she loves it and it makes her like super confident. It could backfire maybe if she doesn't like the shot, but yeah, try to pick a shot that you think she would like. One more thing to keep in mind when I'm shooting to make my images believable and authentic is just less evidence of me in the shoot. That could pertain to lighting. So like if I had a giant strobe hitting her from the side that there's no window around or anything, it just looks like artificial light hitting her, I think that brings more attention to me, the photographer, and less attention to my subject. So if I'm hitting someone with any kind of artificial light, like I'm introducing light into the scene, I'm trying to position it near a window so that it looks like it could come from the window. I'm also trying to make it very subtle. Like today I used a lot of modeling light instead of the strobe. I don't think I even used the strobe once. The modeling light kicked in enough because I just wanted that, I wanted to overpower the ambient light in the room that was putting a weird color on her face. But any more than that was too much. So I just wanted enough to overpower that light to give her good, clean skin tones, but not so much where it looked like the lighting was so obvious, like you blasted her with some artificial light. Again, that brings attention to the photographer, to the setup, and less attention to her, the subject. I like to go for genuine emotion. So instead of telling the bride to smile, I might have to say a joke or to make her laugh, or, you know, I could tell her to laugh, but laughing looks like a genuine smile. If I tell her to smile, I don't know, like models are good at it, so you can kind of tell any model to, or most models, to smile and it'll look natural, but they're just good at it. But with your real brides, man, you better have some jokes up your sleeve, some dad jokes or photographer jokes or whatever. Genuine emotion, like just try to well, the best genuine emotion is when people are interacting with each other. You get a bride and groom together, let them interact, like let them forget about you, back off, let them forget about you. Go with that. I like using a telephoto lens for that. Like sitting back until they forget about me. A lot of times when I'm doing an engagement session, I'll be on a beach, I'll sit them in a good spot, set myself up for success, and I'll back way the heck up and wait until something cool happens. And I'll be just clicking away, and they'll eventually forget about me and they'll start doing something. If they don't and they can't get over it, I might throw some ideas at them to get them to laugh. Hey, whisper something in her ear, you know, like what are you know, just things that kind of break the ice. But I'm going for genuine emotion. When the subject is unaware of the camera, I think those are the most genuine images. And so sometimes, like, models are really good at almost pretending no one, like they could be looking into a lens, but they're looking through the lens. Like kind of like how right now I'm looking through the lens at you. If, I don't know, there's a different look. It's like a model could look through the lens, whereas someone that's uncomfortable in front of the camera just sees the lens and it's like a reflection of themselves. So there's like two different types of looking into a lens. So you can have a very camera unaware look if they're looking into the lens, if, I don't know, they can forget about the lens for a minute and look through the lens at you or at the photographer. The idea is to not make it look like they're thinking about the camera or the photographer or themselves. They're just living. That's the idea. So I'm really going for that like camera unaware look. The next one was unique, new, fresh. Now here's some tips to keep things unique and new and fresh. Whatever everyone else is doing, do something different. I talked a little bit about that in the interview, just talking about how when I shoot for Grace Sermon and shoot the runway stuff, everyone was in the pit shooting down the runway, and I'm like, I gotta do something different. All these shots have been done before, they're being done right now. They all look the same. So I got off camera, I went backstage, I shot towards the pit. I'd use all the lighting from the pit as my backlight and got some really cool dramatic looking images. Everyone's shooting color, I might be shooting black and white. I'm just looking for what everyone else is doing, and I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm intentionally avoiding any images that like feel or seem cliche. I just if I could think of that image, it's been done too many times before. Like if you're shooting in a certain location and you've seen a bunch of images online that look a certain way, don't do any of those. Like don't go online to get ideas of what to do. Go online to get ideas of what not to do. Like go there to see what's out there and what's the main thing that's being done, and then take a different perspective. You have to do something different. It's so important. Another tip is to be kind of random. Sometimes it's just good to be random. Just like let the model be random, or you be random, or anything that comes to mind. Like be funny, silly, random. Sometimes it's cheesy and it looks dumb, but sometimes it actually leads to something else that looks cool. Sometimes it sparks another idea. Like just don't be afraid to be random. Don't be afraid to throw ideas out there. Let your subject throw some ideas out there. Let your assistant standing next to you throw some ideas out there. Ask, just be like inviting for ideas, new things, and let the model know that she's the boss. Or let your bride know she can be herself, and you're gonna capture it. Getting into the clean, simple. I'm a big fan of just clean and simple images. Neutral colors, fewer colors. Most of my work, I don't know if you can put together a collection of my work and look at it on a grid with a bunch of thumbnails, you'll notice that there's fewer colors than probably if you just Googled something else. I feel like I intentionally gravitate towards fewer colors. Neutrals, muted colors, soft skin tones, earth tones, just more mutal and subtle colors. That's just me. It's my taste, my opinion. It's just cleaner and simpler. It's not as busy. I feel like there's enough competition. The subject has enough competition, especially for wedding photographers. There's so much going on in the background. If I can isolate my subject and even the colors that I choose as a background, or what I choose to compose, what I choose to zoom in on, or if I have negative space, which angle I'm at. Am I picking a clean background with negative space, or am I pointing it with a bunch of clutter or a bunch of random colors that maybe would even clash with my subject? I'm paying attention to these things. I'm really intentional about which colors I shoot. Shallow depth of field is a big one. I like shooting wide open. I like really shallow depth of field. I just like it because it tends to simplify my image. It tends to pull my subject out, my subject's sharp, the background just kind of blurs away. And any distractions, any things that's in the background that might pull your attention away from the subject just kind of blends together. It all blurs together. So I'm a big fan of shallow depth. Obviously, there's sometimes where you need more sharpness, or you want to show the scene, you want to show the background, stop down for that. But for the most part, I would say 80 to 90% of my work is really shallow depth of field. Clean lines, it's another big one, looking for lines. Like today, for example, I remember shooting in front of the flight schedules that were, in that red carpet area with the windows in the background and the airplane in the background. And I remember I was trying to figure out how to get that oval sign, where that should be. Should it be above her head? Should it be cutting through her hair? Should it be cutting through her neck or her body? I was just playing with it, but I was looking at those lines, and I want to make sure those lines were not going to be distracting, like cutting somewhere they shouldn't cut. I'm looking at all the lines of the floor. I'm trying to get symmetry, because anything that's not symmetrical or anything that looks kind of off or cuts through a weird place is a distracting line. I want a clean, simple line, and I want the leading lines are important too. Where those leading lines are leading. So clean lines are super important. In the hallway was a perfect example of that. I was being very specific about the leading lines and how those lines led to the model. I remember there was this little halo effect because there was a bright spot behind her head that kind of framed her neck area, and I was playing around until I found something that felt natural and felt cool. It looked like a little halo around her, and there's even the shadow that kind of framed her even more. And then there's all these leading lines. So I was figuring out where those looked the most comfortable and natural and had the most impact. And so I was having to be very specific. I remember having her walk, and she was kind of walking back and forth, and like a model would walk sometimes, to show the hips and everything. And I had her more walk in a straight line, so I can keep the composition so specific to make sure those lines look very clean and in the right spot. This all kind of plays into like that clean, simple thing. And the last one is like soft light. I think soft light, low contrast, is a little cleaner and simpler for my taste. I feel like I typically, if I'm going to be any kind of artificial lighting, it's usually not very specular. It's usually a large soft box. Something, the larger and closer I get to my subject, to me, the more natural and the more like subtle, soft, and clean everything looks. Hard light creates shadows. Shadows create contrast. Contrast sometimes looks busy or distracting. So clean and simple. Okay, so technically sound would be the next one. My subject, I want it to be sharp. I want my subject to be sharp. And if you're shooting wide open apertures, shallow depth of field for that clean look, then you want to make sure you nailed it on the eyes. That means the closest eye to the camera should be sharp. Yeah, you just have to make sure that you're in focus. I think that if you're out of focus, it's technically wrong, especially if you back focus, like say you're focused on the ears. I mean, I've published images and shared my work where there was a mistake because I love the image so much. Again, it comes down to the real versus perfect thing. So sometimes you opt for an imperfect image or a technically unsound image because you just love it so much. But if you can obviously bring something technical together, like something like an amazing moment, a real moment, and the eyes are sharp, that's way better. So subject is sharp, details in the highlights in the gown or anything white preserved. Like you don't want to be blowing out the gown. I remember when I was at a Gary Fong workshop, and I was so proud of this portfolio. I gave him my portfolio to look at, and he was flipping through it, and he handed it back. He's like, Mike, you know, like your work would be really good. Like this would be a really good album if you didn't blow out all your highlights. And I was like horrified, right? I just remember like, I didn't even know, I didn't even realize. And so if you're a new photographer, that's one of the things you could look at. Look at the highlights in the dresses. Are they just pure white, like a white blob? Or do you see the detail? Do you see the lace? Do you see every little detail of that dress? And start paying attention to that. You want your images to be technically sound. Like he was like, you captured all these great moments, but technically, you know, you're lacking there. Another one is accurate skin tones. I think making sure skin tones look good is, man, that's one of the challenges of being a portrait and wedding photographer. You're in so many different lighting situations, trying to get good light. Just try to get daylight, some neutral daylight, balanced light on your subject as the main light source. And again, if it can be big and soft, even better. But accurate skin tones are huge. Attractive light on the face. And you're not always gonna get this, and again, real over perfect, but if you can, you know, if you have any kind of control over it, try to get the angle at the light at the right angle to make it attractive on the face. One quick tip would be Rembrandt style lighting, like you're shooting with the light maybe at 45 or even a little past 45, and you're on the more shaded side, but the light is catching both eyes, and you have like a little triangle of light here where the shadow of the nose meets the shadow from the cheek. That's a very flattering light. If you're in hard light, you can even use that. If you're in like sunlight or direct light, you can use that light. Soft light is even better because then you don't have to deal with it as much. It's just the light is at this angle. It's flattering. The more you get to the side, the more interesting it is, kind of split lighting. The more you get to the front, the more flattering and soft it is. So there's a balance, and sometimes you backlight them. Sometimes you try to find, you know, like an area where you can get some light coming in the front and they're strongly backlit, and that makes it a little more dramatic. But the idea is your lighting is attractive on their face. It's not just like horrible, like creating weird hard shadows. Again, there's always the exception, real over perfect. I have a lot of images where there's like raccoon eyes on the model, and you know, it's maybe not the most attractive lighting for them, but the vibe of the image is so cool. So when I was shooting in the cockpit of the airplane, I remember David was in there crammed in the corner on the side with this giant light. We couldn't fit the whole softbox in there, so I had him bring like the reflector in there, which is more of a diffuser, is a white diffuser, and I had him pull the light as far away from the diffuser as he can. He didn't have much space, but just to create some soft light, and I kept having to like try to get that angle of light to look good on her face, and he was I couldn't have him in the frame, so he was kind of like, we had him stuck on the side, but we did the best we can. And I was paying attention to the light on her face. I wanted to make sure it was, good white daylight on her face, because there were so many weird other lights in there. But I also want to make sure the angle of light was right on her face that looked attractive. So a lot of times, especially as a wedding photographer, or if you're on location, fashion photographer, whatever, you're dealing with backgrounds, you're dealing with distractions in the background. We had, like, for example, at the pool when we were shooting, there was a bunch of people in the pool, and we were like, I don't have time to look at each one of them, make sure they're going to go with the whole theme of my shoot. So it's better to get them out of the shot. Plus, I like simple, clean images. I think they're more impactful. I wanted the model just with the pool behind her, right? And then I was also looking at things on the ground. I was like, okay, well, there's this sign on the ground. There's a TWA logo in the pool. And like, I had her right in front of it. I wanted her standing on it with bare feet, but then we couldn't get the dress wet. It was a silk dress, and we didn't want to destroy it. It was like $8,000. So we moved her in front of it, but then when I moved her in front of it, I could see the TWA logo sticking out the sides of her dress. And I was like, okay, that's distracting. So I moved her down to the side. But then I had to move a bunch of chairs and everything, and people's shoes and towels and everything. So getting the clutter out, right? And then when I was shooting, I just remember there's people here, and then if I went over to this angle, there'd be people over here. So it's just managing. Sometimes you've got to move fast. It's cold outside. The model wants to get back where she can get warm. So you have to move fast, but you still got to pay attention to everything. You got to pay attention to distractions. And to me, like, there was a lot of clutter in that. I'm probably gonna have to Photoshop some stuff. I'm gonna have to crop in on some of the images. But that's fine. Like, it is what it is. You can't always get everything perfect, but the closest you can get to perfect in camera saves you a lot of time later, and it could just make a great image versus like an image that's unusable. The next thing I want to talk about is mood and vibe. I tend to, we talked a little bit about lighting and the direction of lighting. I think mood and vibe comes a lot from lighting, directional light. So I think of a moody image or a vibey image. It has a little more directional light, maybe from the side. Maybe the subject is looking this way and the light's coming from this way, and you got a lot of shadows on the other side. So like there'd be, the main light source, which again, I like it usually large and soft, and then maybe some darker shadows. So moody would be more contrasty, a little more shadows. I still try to keep the contrast down a little bit. I might even like make the blacks not so black, like almost like just a bump up from black, just to keep that soft vibe and then not too much contrast, but there's dark shadows, there's less detail there, and then you have like light coming from the side. That's very moody. Again, my edit might be like a flat, kind of soft edit on it. Bring the highlights down a little bit, bring the shadows up a little bit, and it's still got that contrast. Like maybe the blacks are crushed, but then you still bring them up enough where it brings everything into more of like a neutral palette and not so contrasty. A lot of times I'll add a warm filter. So I think of a moody, vibey image as like more warmth to it. I guess you could also go the other direction, go cool to it. So there might be slightly more color put into that image. Again, it's one color. It's like I'm either going warm or cool. But I feel like warmth feels to me like adding some red and taking out some blue. Just a little bit of warmth definitely makes it feel more moody to me. So this hotel actually has a definite mood. They have music blaring all over the place from like kind of like older, what is it, the 60s or something, 60s vibe going on in this place. Everything is kind of themed, right? So there's definitely a mood to this place, and that goes from the music all the way to like the furniture and the colors and the decor. Like this place has a very strong red theme. Everything's red. It's bright red. And white, like a lot of white, like the walls are white and the carpet's red. So that's a mood and a vibe in and of itself. Like for me, I think of my images, and if I want to kind of like bring all of what TWA has to offer, bring it into kind of my style or what I think of it as a cool image. I still might kind of mute things just a little bit, maybe bring the reds, just desaturate a hair. Not a lot, I still want to keep it as much true to what I saw, but I try to take away a little of the contrast, maybe a little of the punchiness, a little bit of the saturation, just to kind of bring it all into that kind of clean, smooth color palette. Lastly, like the model's expression or your client's expression, whether it's like very serious or maybe even sad, or like all of these things could kind of lend itself to that mood or vibe, like what they're thinking, get them thinking about something. So lastly, stands the test of time. And I think this is something that I've kind of like tried to make my work be since I first started. It was like, and I remember saying this way back like 20 years ago when I first started, I said, I want my work from today to be cool in 20 years or 30 years. I want someone to look at it and be like, man, that's still cool. Or someone to look at their wedding album and be like, and their kids are saying, man, that's still cool. I would hire that photographer. I want someday, and it's coming soon. I'm actually I'm doing some of these. They're coming up where I'm shooting weddings of children of weddings I shot. It's pretty cool. But not just because their parents like me, but hopefully they like the work too. Like the work stood the test of time. It's timeless. It's cool today and yesterday and today. And I think that's easy to do. I mean, it's easy when you're being more of a documentary style photographer, a photojournalist. Like, things are gonna be dated because of the outfits, because of the cars or whatever's in the shot that kind of dates it. But things could still be cool and timeless if they're captured in a more honest way and not put like stylized so much where it lends itself to a certain genre of photographer, a certain like time frame of photographers. Every photographer was doing that back in the day, like that gets like kind of cheesy and brides want something new. But if you're shooting everything more honest, like the skin tones are good, everything's pretty true to how you saw it, and you're being a documentary photographer, all your work's unique, the moment is what's cool. Capturing a moment, that's what's cool, and that's what's going to stand the test of time. I like to try to make images that I take look old immediately. And I think maybe that kind of lends itself to like, oh, it'll be cool forever. If it looks cool now and it looks old, then when it's actually old, it'll still look cool. I do that with like, maybe adding the film grain, or it could be, a certain style of lens, or, trying to avoid certain things in my images, like a car, for example. Like, I don't want that area in my shot because that car specifically says today, like a Tesla or something. I don't know. Like, I just don't want that in my shot. I'd rather have an old car in my shot because now that shot could have been taken today or 50 years ago. So I would opt for a background that looks old, like city backdrops that are older, like older cities, like bricks and just cobblestone streets or whatever. I would choose that over something, more new or dated. Again, muted colors, I think, lends itself to this. Like getting the colors just all simple and muted, I think, lends itself to standing the test of time. And then nature's easy. Like, if you bring someone in nature, trees, fields, things like that, it's kind of timeless. And outfits can change everything. I try to like get people away from, any dated logos, things like that, where it would like kind of date things. Yeah, I don't know. If they're wearing Converse, I'm wearing Converse. Converse have been around forever. I don't know, like people still wear them. So I feel like you can wear Converse, yeah, because you don't know how old Converse are. But yeah, I'm trying to stay away from anything that's super dated and trying to like aim or select what I'm shooting as my backdrop, and even like how I'm directing my client to dress and things like that to be a little more timeless, a little less dated. It reminded me of today when the model was putting on the headband, or the stylist was actually asking me if she should wear the headband. So I was thinking like, well, I don't know. Like I'd have to see it first, and I didn't want to mess up her hair. But I knew I liked her hair. I knew that hair, the style that we had, very natural, just kind of beachy down. I knew that was kind of timeless, and I would probably like that for a long time. So I wanted to see when they put the headband on if I thought that was going to date it or just kind of be annoying in any way. And when they put it on, I was like, I kind of like the hair better. I didn't know. I wasn't like super opinionated about it, but I just opted for the time. I opted for something I knew I would like, which was without the headband. And I said, bring the headband along. We'll put it on, and we never did, I don't think. But yeah, I knew I liked the hair, and I knew the hair, simple hair styles are something that's timeless. So it's tempting sometimes to like look at the trends and say, oh, I have to do this, or I have to make my work look like this in order to get hired. And I think it's important just to really stick to what you like, stick to like what turns you on, what like why you became a photographer, what moves you. Obviously, like, you can't control everything at a wedding. You can't control like what people are wearing at the wedding. And like, say the bride picks a pink dress, for example. You can't really avoid that, or you don't want to make it black and white. That's going to look like mud, So you shoot it. It's your client. You take care of them. You make sure that like what they like is also captured. It's their wedding. It's their album. It's their keepsakes. It's what they're going to see. They got to deal with that later when they're explaining it to their kids. But as far as like, me and what I like I try to bring even the pink dress into like at least the right background and try to make that pink dress pop and make it look right for what it is. And I have nothing against pink dress. That was just an example. But you get the idea. Like, you can't control everything, but all you really can do is stay true to who you are as an artist and what you like. You can't be chasing different trends, and you can't be like super upset when a bride isn't wearing what you like. You just go with the flow, document the best. You can only do the best you can. But again, I try to make things as timeless as possible. Thanks again. I really appreciate you tuning in. You can find me or hit me up on Instagram. It's at Mike Colón. Send me an instant message. I'd love to hear from you and hear your thoughts. If there's any place to leave comments, leave comments. I will read those and try to respond. Thanks again, and thanks to Sony and B&H for putting this event on. Really appreciate it, and take care.